So, this is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Doesn't that just put you off? It would be a little nicer if you kind of said you're dreaming and you're going to wake up, and only the time you wake up is voluntary, um, which seems a lot less mandatory and something that you'd want to say, no, I don't think so, and put down the book in the first page. But apparently that's what wanted to go into one of the first few pages. So, my name is Stephen, and I've been practicing the Course in Miracles for 9 years. I'm here to give an introduction to a little bit about my experience with the Course and practicing it and how to do it. There are people that read it for 10 years and still don't know how to do it, and then there's ones that read it for 30 years and also don't know how to do it. So I'm going to give you some instruction. First, let's see, I used to be in the New Age movement, and I tried to follow lots of weird things, the manifesting thing, conversations with God, those random ideas on learning lessons, and then you can not have to go back and reincarnate again. There's lots of interesting things with these, because somewhere deep inside you know something is there, but none of those ideas really work. I know because I've tried them for many years and failed many times. I stopped failing about the time I got Joel Goldsmith's material, but anyway, I'm going to stick to the course for this presentation, which hopefully isn't too long. Okay, so I used to work retail, and in retail you get lots of experience dealing and interacting with people, and the course pretty much is a manual of the hundreds of thousands of types of ways you can interact with somebody and how they all boil down to guilt and blame. So I would a cashier, and I'd notice there'd be angry customers, and luckily I wasn't a floor associate, so I didn't have to deal with them at the time. But they would come up to my register, and essentially all of them would try to verify the idea that they were being harmed or somebody was trying to attack them, and usually it's by they couldn't get out of the store on time, they couldn't find their item, it was $20 this or $20 that way, the way they didn't want it. I admittedly did have one guy that wanted to pay more because he was quoted more than something was, and he wanted to be honest, but that was pretty cool. So, but they'd come up to my register and they'd be like, man, that guy wasn't there. And I really didn't know how to practice the course. I mean, I started with family when I'd get in fights with my siblings, and then I'd realize that, words don't actually hurt. I don't have to respond. And that was like the beginning of family forgiveness. But to move more into professional, people come up to you and say, man, this guy did this to me, or that guy did this to me. I didn't actively have a technique, but I knew that nobody could be attacked because we're not really bodies, we're spirit, and hopefully if you're studying the Course, I don't need to explain that to you. But even if I do, if you keep reading the Course, you follow it logically, or Joel Goldsmith's material, and believe that something came before the body, then you'll logically find a way. Ernest Holmes, he's really good at logic. I love his books. I'll tell my career field later. But, so, anyway, I knew these people weren't actually being harmed. They were just upset, and they were trying to say, this happened, therefore I was attacked. So I wouldn't respond to it. I would just say, hello, thanks for coming by. I'd ask them if they found everything okay, because I had to. I really don't like that question. It's very, very bad sales. It's basically being a robot. But anyway, sales is a different field. So they would say, I'm attacked subconsciously. And I wouldn't respond to it at all, and none of them got mad at me. This was interesting. They all left my register with a smile. So I knew that there was something going on. Anyway, to get to the major point, I thought that this was difficult. I am having a hard time forgiving at the register because I have to think so fast and move so fast. Then immediately I got moved because a door greeter was gone and I needed to stay at the door. It's like, wow, this is awesome. I can go forgive everybody without being distracted. So as they entered the store, I would try to see them as whole spirit and basically try to see them as the huge Christ consciousness just existing everywhere. As Shakespeare said in a play, and as Buddha said, witnessing the witness. So I saw them as just kind of watching. So I'm seeing this infinite pillar of energy through people, like projecting it onto them. I didn't literally see it. And then I just get like hyper energized, and I did this for weeks. I want to say days, but honestly, maybe I was on medical leave or something, and I kept going. And so days passed. I eventually found Joel Goldsmith's material. He was a little easier to read, and he had some supply meditations. So I started practicing His Grace is My Supply, and within a matter of days, I got inspired to do a couple things. But externally, I got promoted. It was only a 10-cent raise because of this particular retail store that I worked at, but I didn't have to do cashier anymore, and it was a lot easier and funner, and I got to talk to people. And it still was productive. So I saw that work. I got inspired to sell different methods of transportation, and my health increased. Various parts of my life got better. Ever since reading Joel Goldsmith, I wouldn't have to worry about many things I used to worry about. But it's because I took the meditations and I practiced them and I got insight. What you do is you take whatever you learn and you try to translate it to a method that you can internally digest and use. So the course has 600 pages, but you're only going to memorize some analogies. So it's the nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, herein lies peace. So that's the basic creed. So if you're dreaming, nothing's there, you're just the mind, therefore, I like the you're dreaming analogy because it's essentially true, except you gotta take the idea that you are huge, you're everybody, and they split up into a bunch of people, or a bunch of mind viewing eyes that think they're different people, but in reality it's like the left hand and the right hand, and they're all basically we have lots of pre-planned conflicts, so left hand and right hand both want to, let's say, grab an orange. But there's only one orange, so I believe this is why Buddha says let go of desire, because clearly that'll stop the conflict, at least on one side. If you stop the conflict on one side, even if the other side wants the orange, there's still no conflict. Course in Miracles takes it a step further, a few steps further, goes into the psychology behind it, why it can't be real, etc., etc. It all boils down to one thing. It gives you a basis for forgiving. You don't actually need a basis. You can be an atheist. You don't have to accept the idea that the world might not be fully real, but you do have to try to see people as if they're acting, or if you can't go that far, then try to use the method of understanding. Granted, this only works in 90% of the situations. It doesn't work in the other 10%. So I'll give you an example. I was at a Winco, and this lady was shopping next to me and my friend, and I was doing some math on eggs, whether you should buy them individual or bundled in a 5 dozen pack or something. So I figure out it's cheaper to buy the individual eggs. So I'm saying, wow, I literally said out loud, wow, it's cheaper to get the individual eggs in the bundle. And I watch in somewhat awe as she grabs the big, huge bundle. Of course, everyone has their own reasons for doing it. I will grab a bundle if I know it's more expensive, if I'm just going to go bake a whole bunch of, I don't know, cookies or something. So, a situation like that is no logical reason for it. You just have to forgive, using the idea that the body's acting in a play, the person's just kind of watching. They don't know they're watching. Just try to see them in this light, and there's various analogies you can use. You can do a pre-planned video game, you can do dollhouse, you can pretend like everybody is on a ride, and the ride is going on its own, and there's only really two things you can do. You can either see it as if you're on the ride, and that gives you true perception. true perception alters your body's actions, because you're no longer going to act on the idea that, hey, I'm a separate body and I'm going to try to fulfill my desires. You will get your free will back, essentially, which is kind of like dreaming, and part of you says, hey, I know I'm dreaming. I'm going to change my behavior a little bit. Maybe I don't have to work my whole life just to reincarnate and do it again. It's kind of, if you're lucky, you look at some third world countries and you think that maybe my karma's really good because I'm here and I'm not planting individual rice seeds all day, because that looks like I wouldn't even have the opportunity to enlighten. So that is the practice. You have to apply it to everything, though. You don't have to start this way, but chocolate, you're like, well, it's in the mind, so the flavor's in my mind, so I must be grateful that maybe this possible sensation is already something I can bring out, the same way you could eat a treat in a dream and taste it just fine. I had a dream I was eating macaroni. It felt more filling than in real life, and then I woke up and, of course, I was hungry. So maybe there's a possibility that my mind can generate any sensation for any random reason at any time. Now, you ever go to bed and think you're falling and wake up instantly? That's the mind generating something. And even if you believe that you're going astral, flying around in a lighter body, you could say, that's still the mind projecting things. I don't believe there's anything special or unique about the astral. It's just yet another perception of duality. So forgiveness is basically the idea that everything around you is insubstantial, and you give it back to the non-substance that it came from by saying, hey, you don't have value. You do that to things that upset you, and you stop being upset. You do that to things that give you pleasure, then you realize that you're just tricking yourself, and maybe you can have joy without needing the thing that you thought you needed. I guess that is a relatively personal introduction. I have an iPhone app out. It's free, it has some advertising on it, and probably needs an update for iOS 7. But anyway, it's called iReal Secret, and it will go over some practical techniques. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you get some benefit out of it. Even if you're an advanced course user, like I said, you could be practicing for 20 years, or I've seen 70 years, not the course, but a secret. And these are, I guess, really, you need to practice. You can't just sit and read a book.